Now, if you see the previous problem on flexible budget, you will find the total cost. Okay, the total cost of each expenses. Maybe that is direct material or variable expenses or fixed expenses. So directly the cost was given to us, right? Now this is a problem where cost is not given to us, but we are given the cost per unit. Okay, we are given cost per unit, that is the raw material. Okay, for 1 unit what will be the cost? So per unit is given to you. So the cost of per unit is given to you with the total number of units. If you are producing 20,000 units, okay, this is a 20,000 units total number of units, what will be the cost accordingly? Likewise, they have told you to prepare a budget for 15,000 units and 10,000 units. Okay, pay attention. So right on top, flexible budget, okay, for the period, flexible budget for the period, and prepare columns. Okay, now first column will be always your particulars column. Okay, now here you have, since they are in the number of units and per unit, so you will have to write the column for per unit and also the total cost. Okay, so the total cost will be as per the 20,000 units. Now you are supposed to do it for 15,000 units and also for 10,000 units. So you prepare column for all the units. Okay, so this will be your total cost and this will be your per unit, because since we are given in this problem per unit, so we will do accordingly. Okay, let's start. See the problem. Now in the first problem, if you see, you have raw material. Okay, now raw material, and then you have direct labor and direct expenses. These are the components of your prime cost. So you write these all the cost: direct material, direct labor. Then you have the, have I solved this problem in your class?
No,
No,
ma'am.
no, no.
Okay. Then you have direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. So just write the number of units of each material. So you have material as 75, labor as 20 rupees, and direct expenses as 25. So for expenses, each, if you are producing 1 unit, what will be the expenses? Okay, the cost of the expenses will be rupees 25, and labor will be 20 rupees, and material will be 75 if you are producing 1 unit. Likewise, we need to calculate if you are the cost for 20,000 units. So if you are producing for 20,000 units, how much is going to be your cost? So simple.
1,50,000.
Yes, very good. So if you multiply with the total number of units, you will get this particular total cost for 20,000 units. Very good. Okay. So now this will be your total prime cost. So if you add, you will get the 24 lakh. Then next thing, if you see in the problem, you have the next overhead as simply overhead. Nothing is given to you. And below that, if you see, there is a fixed overhead. Okay, check the problem. If you see, there is a fixed overhead. So what is fixed overhead? Fixed overhead is that overhead which is fixed for that particular unit's capacity. Then there is an administration overhead. So that means this simply which is given as overhead will be known as variable overhead. Okay, now any cost, any expenses is given as simply overhead and no other information is given as, then consider that as a variable overhead. Okay, then you have fixed overhead, and then you have administrative overhead which is fixed. So variable overhead you have as 15, then fixed overhead it is given to you already 20, and administrative overhead as given as 10 rupees. Okay, so if you multiply the total cost for variable overhead, you will get 3 lakh, and fixed overhead directly given to you the amount. Okay, it is directly given to you, that is rupees 4 lakh. So that you write, and then you have administrative expenses, it will come to 2 lakh. So if you multiply 10 multiply by 20,000, you will get 2 lakh. Okay, so I'm multiplying with each unit with the total number of units, so I'm getting this particular answers. Then so when I add the total, when I add the prime cost and the variable and fixed cost, I get the total cost of production. Okay, but my cost is also associated with some of the semi-variable cost. Now these are the cost which has the feature of fixed and the variable overhead. So I will write as semi-variable overhead. Under that I have selling expenses and then I have distribution expenses. So selling and selling expenses I have since they are semi-variable, so I will have fixed and variable expenses. Likewise for distribution expenses also I will have fixed and variable. So the proportion of fixed variable is 10% for selling expenses, and the proportion for distribution expenses is 25% for fixed expenses. Okay, so now here very important. Now you have to calculate 10% on this particular unit, that is cost per unit. Okay, so the total cost is 15 rupees, students. Okay, now the total cost for one unit is rupees 15. Now you need to see how much will be the fixed cost and how much will be the variable cost per unit. So if you calculate 15 into 10%, so you will get as 1.5. Okay, so you will get 1.5 here. And from 15 rupees, if you deduct 1.5, you will get 13.5. So remaining will be your variable cost. Okay, so remaining will be your, sorry, here it is. So remaining will be your variable cost. Okay, that means total cost per unit is rupees 15. The proportion of fixed cost is 10%. So remaining will be your variable expenses. So 10% I have calculated from the 15 rupees. So I will get 1.5 rupees. So that will be my fixed expenses for selling expenses. Okay, and variable will be 13.5 per unit cost. Now you multiply with the total number of units. So when I will multiply 1.5 into 20,000, I will get this as an answer. So 13,000 rupees will be the fixed overhead for selling expenses, and 2,70,000 will be your variable expenses. Okay, then same way you will have to do it for distribution expenses. The cost for distribution expenses is rupees 20. So is rupees 20. I will write over here so that you know that the cost is 20 rupees for per unit. So if you calculate 25% of 20 rupees, you will get as rupees 3. Yes or no? So if you calculate 25% of 20 rupees, how much you are getting? So you will get as I think 5 rupees. Yes or no? Have you calculated?
5 rupees.
5 rupees. So you will get as 5 rupees. And here it will be remaining, it
20.
will be 15. Okay, so that will be your the fixed the proportion of the cost. Now here very important, students, that you need to multiply with the total number of units. So when you will multiply, so that is 5. So I'll just make it visible. So when you multiply
5 and 15.
5 multiply by 20, you will get as 1 lakh. Yes or no? Then 15 multiplied by 20, you will get as 3 lakh. Okay. So this was your the cost. So this was your cost for the each of the expenses. Likewise, in every problem which we have done, this was given to you. Okay, this information was given to you. But in this problem, the per unit was given to you and the total number of units. So you could calculate the cost for each expenses. Now, likewise, you will have to calculate for 15,000 units and 10,000 units. So let's calculate the total cost. So you have total cost per unit will be the 200, and the total amount of the 200 cost, that is the cost for 20,000 will be 40 lakh. Okay, so the cost of 20,000 will be 40 lakh rupees. Now, let's come to 15,000 and 10,000 units. Always remember, okay? Always remember. So the cost per unit will be same for the variable expenses. For the variable expenses. When I was teaching you the concept of fixed cost and the variable cost, there I had mentioned you. Okay, I will show you that PPT just to recollect the concept. In that I had explained you that the cost per unit will be same for the variable expenses, but the cost per unit for the fixed expenses won't be same. It will differ, it will vary. So just recollect that particular concept. Yes, can you see the screen? Now here I was telling you the cost per unit will be same for the variable. See this particular point, but the fixed cost won't be similar. So the cost of the fixed cost, that is cost per unit, won't be same. Now in this problem also, here we are given as the cost per unit of each expenses. Okay. So here the direct material and the direct labor and the direct expenses, the cost will remain same. Okay. So the cost will remain same. So you will have to multiply with the total, that is total number of units. So you will get as, so when you will multiply, you will get it as this particular figure. Okay. Then here also you can just add. Now, as I told you, variable expenses will remain same. So if you multiply, you will get this as an answer. Now, very, very important part. Okay, very, very important part. I told you, whatever will be the cost, whatever will be the number of units, the fixed cost remains same. Yes or no? The fixed cost remains same. So see, even though if you are producing 20,000 units, if you are producing 15,000 units or 10,000 units, the cost of your fixed expenses or fixed overhead will remain same. It won't change. Okay. Now, what will be the cost per unit? How you will calculate? Now we are given
divided by quantity.
Yes, very good. So if you divide the total cost with the total number of units, you will get the cost per unit. So what will be the cost per unit? Divide 4 lakh. 4 lakh divided by 15,000. You will get as, fast calculate. I think you will get in point. So you can just round up the figure. So it will be 26.7. 26.7 will be your total, your cost per unit for the fixed overhead. Now here, one important aspect you need to note down, that fixed cost remains same, but the per unit changed. This is a point I was explaining you, that this is a very important feature of fixed cost and the variable cost. See, the variable cost, total cost varies, but the cost per unit remains same. But in case of fixed overhead, the total cost remains same, but whereas the cost per unit will always change, or it will always vary. This point you note down. Okay. Now, same way, the cost for administrative overhead expenses is fixed. So it will be 2 lakh. Now you need to calculate the cost per unit. So when you are going to calculate the cost per unit, that is 2 lakh divided by 15,000, you will get as 13.333. So you can just write as 13.3. See here, this also, the cost per unit for 20,000 units were 10 rupees 10. But here the cost per unit changed. So this is a very important feature about fixed cost, that is fixed overhead. Cleared? Yes?
Yes, ma'am, clear. Yeah.
Then you need to total the total cost of production. Okay. I just missed for 20,000 units. Just note down. So you need to add the total cost of production. What includes the total cost of production? Your prime cost and your variable and fixed. Then you have the semi-variable expenses. Okay. Now here, very, very important. Again, I'm telling you, the fixed cost will remain same. Okay, the fixed cost will remain same. Now you need to calculate the variable, the per unit. How you will calculate? Same, 30,000 divided by 15,000. So you will get as 2. Now what about the variable per unit? Variable per unit remains the same. Now how you will calculate this? 13.5 into 15,000 you will get. Okay, always remember, if you note down two important things, the total cost of fixed overhead remains same. So you will write the total cost as it is. And the variable overhead per unit remains the same. So the variable per unit remains the same. If these two things are cleared, okay, then you can find out the vice versa. That is, you can find out in case of per unit in case of fixed overhead, and the total cost in case of variable overhead. Okay, now let's do for the distribution expenses. Okay, now when you're doing fixed overhead, no, so the cost will remain same. The cost will remain same, and the variable, the per unit remains the same. That is 15 rupees. Okay, that is 15 rupees. So the 15 rupees for the variable overhead per unit, and here for 15,000 units, it will remain same. So the variable overhead per unit will remain same no matter how much number of units you produce, but the variable overhead per unit will remain same. See, I have got these two information. So I can easily find out this particular information here and this particular information. Yes or no? How I can find out this particular per unit? Because I have this data. So I can divide 1 lakh with 15,000. So when I divide 1 lakh 15,000, how much I will get? So that is 15,000 units. So are you getting 6.66 something? Just check. So you can just round up the figure. So you will get as 6.66. So you can write 6.7. Now how you will get this particular data? So when you will calculate 15 into 15,000, so you will get as 2,55,000. Okay. So you just total the total number of units. Okay. The cost for 15,000 units. So it will be 212.2, and the total cost for 15,000 units will come to 14,12,500. So kindly check the totaling. Okay. Then let's come to 10,000 units. Now, same way as I told you, the number per unit will remain same. Okay. No matter how much number of units you produce, the per unit will remain same for all the number of units. So that's the speciality of the such expenses. Okay, overhead expenses will also remain same. Okay, but fixed expenses won't be similar. It won't remain same. Okay, so first we will calculate this with the total number of units. When you multiply, you will get as this particular information, that is cost. Then this also you can multiply, you will get. Now here about fixed cost, I cannot write the same, that is 20,000. I will have to write the total cost as the fixed cost. So this cost will remain same. Likewise for the administrative overhead, it will be 2 lakh only. Then you need to calculate this particular information. How you will calculate? So when you divide 4 lakh divided by 10,000, you will get as 40 rupees. So the cost of, okay, the cost per unit for the fixed overhead will be rupees 40. Okay, the per unit for the fixed overhead is rupees 40, and the per unit for the administrative overhead is rupees 20. How you will get rupees 20? 2 lakh divided by 10,000. Okay, then you just total it. Let's go to the semi-variable expenses. So fixed, so that this is going to be same 30,000 units. Okay, how you will calculate this? Again, divide the same thing, 30,000 divided by 10,000. So you will get as 3. Then variable expenses. I told you variable, the per unit remains the same. The per unit remains the same. So you will multiply now 13.5 into 10,000. You will get as 1,35,000. Again, this fixed expenses, the fixed cost will remain same. So how I will calculate the per unit? I will just divide it. Now here variable remains the same. I can calculate easily the total cost. Okay. Now I have to just add the total per unit. Okay. I have to add all the per unit and I have to add the total cost. Cleared? I have already uploaded this particular solution on the Google Classroom. Okay. Yesterday only I have uploaded. You can just copy now. So we have solved three types of flexible budget problem. One thing when only variable, semi-variable and fixed overhead was given to us. Okay. When there was no direct, that is prime cost information was not given to us. So that time you can just add all the costs. So you will get, and you can calculate the direct labor hour rate. Then you got the prime cost. Yes or no? So you had the prime cost, extra information. You had variable, you had fixed, and you had the semi-variable. So that time how you need to solve the problem. How you need to calculate the different capacities. This I have kept blank because I want you to calculate. Okay. So it is very easy. I have just mentioned this thing so that you can copy. And thirdly, we have done on the per unit. So three types of problems we have